Hi, this is Phil, and I'm here to tell you all about the Capes and Lunatics Patreon. Don't miss out on our comic book creator interviews, including our monthly Chichester chats with comic book legend DG Chichester, superhero movie brackets in our search for the worst comic book movie of all time, and many, many more specials, all completely uncensored. Access starts for $3 a month, full video when you pledge $5 a month. Check out the link in our show notes or go to patreon.com/CapesandLunatics. Hope to see you there.
In a world of capes and lunatics, gods and monsters, there are those who stand between the worlds. They are the servants of the night. They are Khonshu. They are Moon Knight. Welcome, friends. And avast, as we sail full stream ahead, I am your captain, Charlie, the Professor Esser. And with me, as always, is me first mate and skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
It's Mozz. You know, I'm starting to wonder if the pirate theme is working with the intros we do anymore. And so maybe I still like full stream ahead.
Yeah.
I do like the pirate voice.
I do like the pirate voice too. But in my head, when we first thought of it, to me it was like space, like full speed ahead, after them or something, And then I was like, oh, pirates are cool too. I get to do guard.
Well, I mean, you can have space pirates, and and the idea was because the idea is full stream ahead. It's like full steam ahead, but you're streaming your content, so it's like deep into the internet we go and come back through.
Yeah,
that's my envisionment of it.
We can try different characters,
Yes, we could do lots of things. But full stream ahead is it, and we will gonna keep our thing. But we'll let you listeners vote. Do you like the pirate voices? Arg. If nothing else, we probably will always keep the pirate voices at the end.
Yeah.
Because that's where we say once again, sail full stream.
It's just tradition.
It is tradition. So we'll have a different open and a different close. Anyway, this episode, Asylum. Hello. We had our fun time with Taurette. Mark and Steven search through their memories to find their truth and become left behind. Our director, of course, is Mohammed Daib. Our writers are Jeremy Slater, who created the whole thing for television. Daniel Iman, our staff writer. Hit the wrong button. For Rebecca Kirsch's page, but I just want to see what she did on this show. Unresponsive keys. There we go. And
I thought that was the name of a show, Unresponsive Keys. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting show. I've never heard of that show.
So Rebecca Kirsch gets the written by. Doug Monach gets our characters, creator, and then we have Matthew Orton and Don Perlin, who are listed under the characters as well. This is a very confusing one, but, that's IMDb for you. But Daniel Iman is still our hardest working woman in show business as our staff writer. All right, Mozzie. This episode, so we have to work through what we have here. And I think that is what this is about.
So where did the last episode end?
The last episode ends with them running out of the hospital, running through the hospital, and behind the door comes Taurette, the hippo goddess of women and motherhood, saying hello or hi there or however it was. And then this is them sort of just after they
like
scream.
little girls, right?
Yes, because it was very scary. It's a giant hippo lady, which even if you're a furry, that's a sight to behold.
I mean, yes, it's a scary creature, but
Yeah, well, hey, hippos kill
you
more
work
people than
for a
lions.
guy with a floating rook skull,
Yeah, well, this is true too. But effectively, they go through this whole thing. There's the jump backs to Dr. Hero's office, where he also discusses the framing device, and both Tawret and Dr. Hero discuss how our minds compartmentalize things that they don't want to face and can't understand. Similar to the way that Tawret is saying that, the gradness of the Duat can't be conceived, so you're going to create something you can understand. That these forms and functions are first birthed in your mind, and and she says, mental asylum, not common, but we can roll with it. A lot of fun object work by Tawret here, where she's running through the papers, and but that's a nice magical thing for a character to do. Run through the page, because she throws them all around, but they're all going to return back to her,
right?
Just like those moon sigils.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting, and it's interesting because, of course, as we start off with this Mark Spector, he's very much into it. He is the geek,
right?
He is the nerd meeting Tawret, and he says this, like he said in episode earlier. If these things came to life, that would be just amazing.
Yeah,
I would scream and mess
did
myself.
you say I would soil myself? Yeah, he did. Right.
Yeah, well, you might have used the S word, but that's okay. Yeah, we're trying to be more family friendly here, but yeah, but here he is, and here he is. After it's all, he puts it all together. This is Tawret. This is the afterlife. She's guiding us through the I forget the word they called it, the desert, to get to the field of reeds. And of course, at that moment, Mark is like, "No, this is just how crazy we are. Nothing about this can be real, because this is all has to be a hallucination." Then he says, and I'm sure if I open these doors, it's going to be a big, it's going to see
nothing but a broom closet or something.
Yes. And there it is, the boat, and they're on the Nile, or they're on the sands, the boat on the sands, which is, yeah. I love the boat. I love a boat that just sails on sand. It works for me.
I mean, maybe there could be some geysers underneath it that are releasing gas that's slowly coming up, that's displacing the particles in such a way that you can float and it acts more like water. I could see that.
Well, what actually strikes me in this is how much this scene reminds me of. Did you see Pixar Disney's Soul?
No.
So in Soul, there is this sort of world between worlds that the souls can go between consciousness and what is before and what is after.
Okay.
And it is also a massive desert. And those that get stuck in the desert kind of turn to sand and creatures of sand. It's very interesting. Just the symbolic refertilization between the two groups, because you really get the idea that, obviously all these people go to the same cafeteria, probably. They all probably get their lunch together, and people talk about what we're working on in the art departments between these groups. So I can see all this cross fertilization. So when you see this, and if you think about the I think they called them the psychopirates even, or they were just the people that were in the zone that could travel into that world between worlds. And they were also on these boats trying to help lost souls. It's an interesting parallel. So I do think that works nicely within the construct of this story. And we get the whole thing about weighing their hearts. And it's all interesting because, obviously there's an interesting point in this that obviously the two hearts can't be in balance with the figure because it's supposed to be one heart, but obviously that's
not even completely their complete self. There's a piece missing.
Well, exactly. Well, this is the idea, is that there's more to it than they can see, but also it's not that it's just that the heart doesn't balance with the feather. It's that it keeps on going up and down. That the hearts do not find balance and peace with the feather, which is what leads to most of this situation, which is that they have to go back and they have to enter into their memories.
See, I saw like, because it's not complete, it's sort of in that quantum state of being complete, but not complete at the same time. So you can't really measure it. And so
I mean,
that's how I saw the problem.
No, and that's a good way to see the problem. And it is this idea that because arguably their heart is so separate, is so disjointed, that it can't be brought together. That it can't just be easily brought together because it's separated for a reason, because these two halves of the person need to reconcile with themselves what is each person's purpose in this story. And that's where we get the backstory. We also, of course, get, this was one of the most interesting things when he says, when we open up that door, I remember, because he specifically says, we're going to open these doors and Crowley will be reading bingo numbers, which is what Crowley is doing in the thing. But what's weird is that Crowley is the mechanical man that Stephen talks to.
Right.
But this also means that, yes, Crowley actually does have a role in Mark's life. Mark knows Crowley. So the Mark,
as much as he can know anybody, really. I mean, he's the only person. Well, knowing somebody and being known, those are powerful things, each of them. So the fact that he gets to talk to him and he's the only one that probably really knows Stephen's inner feelings. But the idea is reflected in this situation.
Well, and again, in the comics, Crowley is a person who's an informant for Mark. So, in the sense that Mark knows who Crowley is, because if you think about it, I guess being a mechanical man in the middle of a square probably gives you that anonymity where you see a lot more than people think you see, and you hear a lot more than people think.
You think Crowley ever encountered Mark or Jake?
Yeah, that's the idea. Is that I think that Mark and Crowley do know each other. I think that's one of these.
Stephen and Crowley don't, but Mark and Crowley.
No, Stephen and Crowley do know each other. Because
what I'm saying is, yes, I know they know each other, but I wonder if he's ever met Mark. If Mark has showed up and spoken to Crowley and be like, "Hey, blah 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 blah, keep an eye on him. Let me know what he says. If he ever says anything about this or whatever."
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. It's possible.
That would be cool.
And we do know that people were having interactions with Stephen's life that Stephen wasn't aware of. Someone asked out the
lady at the museum.
The lady at the museum. And of course, the thought is that might have been Crowley, or not Crowley, that might have been Jake Lockley. And there is a theory online that we do see Jake Lockley briefly in this. When, he tells the doc, "Hey doc, I feel like $1 million," and, all this kind of stuff. And he grabs the thing just before they inject him with something that doesn't look good.
Yeah. It looked like Flint water.
Yes. And that, of course, knocks him back out. And then they're back in the hallway, because that's when so that's sort of one of those moments when Mark is having the breakdown. And then we see that brief glimpse of Lockley. Then they have to go back and they're looking through what their lives had. And of course, Mark's whole thing is he doesn't want Stephen to see these things, and that is the whole point of this, is that Mark has always tried to keep the Stephen personality from the dark parts of his life. But as they go into it, they have to. And they do come into the room with all of the people that Mark has killed. And of course, that leads to the kid, because why is there a little kid in the room of everyone you've killed? And this is where, again, it goes into Mark doesn't want Steven to know what is happening.
It almost seems like something Amit would do.
What? Kill all the people, or kill a child?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, and of course that is literally the thing. It's the idea that is that line you cannot cross. You don't kill a kid. You know, you can't, because that's not, you know, all of that sense of evil. You don't need to give into it. You don't need to participate in it. You know, you need to be better than that and stronger than that. But he does follow the kid, and Mark is trying to stop him, because Mark knows who the kid is. Mark knows what it's leading towards. And it's interesting, because when Steven runs into a room, he locks the door behind Mark. Which is actually, and again, it's that interesting idea that this is all in Mark's mind.
Right.
So he wants to stop himself, but he stops himself from stopping himself, effectively.
Right.
Because he knows this is what has to happen. And even though the personality is freaking out by this, the larger being that is Mark actually knows that this is what has to happen. This is what has to occur to move us forward. We see a happy Spectre family barbecue. And we see that there's this little kid, who we've learned is Randall Spectre. Now, there is a Randall Spectre in the comics. Whether or not that this is ever going to pay off to be that Randall Spectre, I'm going to say probably not, because it's a super convoluted backstory, but you never know. There are things that could happen from it, but we do see in this idea that Mark feels responsible for Randall's death, because while they were playing as the Tomb Busters, it was interesting that the little kid said, "I'll be the sidekick. You be Stephen Grant."
He's the older brother, you know.
I know, but that he just suggests it. It's like, you know, and it's one of these things that I choose to sit in the middle with my feet on the hump.
Yeah,
it's just that idea that, but he wants to play the game with his big brother, and he knows if his big brother gets to be the Stephen Grant, that it's better.
Then he'll want to play with me.
Exactly.
Mom wouldn't have to force me to take you with me.
Yes. They go into the caves, and the caves flood. Now, some people have pointed out that there are not caves like this where this picnic is supposed to be taking place. But, it is the Marvel Universe. It's possible that things are a little bigger and creepier when you get into it. There's not really an underground civilization of mole men that we know of.
Right.
But they're very much a reality of Marvel comics.
And that celestial being born through the crust of the earth must have moved some things around. I can chalk it up to that.
Well, yeah, but this is, this is before that.
Oh, is it?
Yes, because this is taking place presumably post-blip. So any of the flashback scenes had to be pre-blip, which would mean before Tiamat awoke. So it's it's weird when you think about it in time travel. And it is also interesting in the idea that this is also, again, the unreliable narrator, because this is also how a little kid remembers it. And there was a great scene in Young Rock the other day where this one character, I forget his name, but he's sort of a local promoter. Kind of reminds me of Jimmy Mouth of the South Heart, but it's not him. So it's just another guy who's doing the same act. And, there's a scene where when he meets him because first time we see that character is when he's an adult, and that guy is very short. But the second time they talk about the story, it's the young Rock. And so that character is much taller. and the person doesn't recognize, and Randall doesn't recognize him in the Randall Park doesn't recognize him in the story. So it's just a funny thing about just how when you were a little kid, the way you see things is very different. The way that you remember things is very different. So while there might not have been literally these ancient caves, there might have been storm sewers that they explored as caves. And of course, yes, you don't go into a storm sewer when it's raining because exactly what seems to happen happens.
The caves could have been there in his imagination,
exactly.
in their play space.
Exactly. He remembers them as the caves because that's what they were to them at the time, with the ancient writings, and mystical symbols that kids paint on the inside of storm drains. Graffiti. But yeah, so that's that. And this is where he realizes what happened, and this is where as Stephen is going through this, he sees that this mother that he truly loved is not who he thought. And actually we get this pretty interesting scene in Harrow's office when Stephen is in Harrow's office. And you get this confrontation about Stephen's mother. And the idea that Stephen refuses to admit that his mother's dead. Because, up until this point, he remembers his mother in this one way because he only got to see because Stephen Grant was only there when his mother was kind or was being nice. He could see his mother and he could only pick out those moments to be with his mother, to think of that idealized mother, not the drunken, abusive mother that Mark grew up with. And so when he's confronting Harrow and Harrow says, your mother's dead, he says, my mom's not dead. Go ahead and call her. And then Harrow says, okay, we'll call her. And then Mark says, you can't call her. You don't know her number. And he says, no, it's on your medical file, which it would be if she were alive. And when faced with that logic, that breaks Mark down, and he has to recognize that his mother is alive, is dead. And he says, my mother's been dead for months. And that comes into this moment, at his mother's funeral, where he won't go in, and we see that is when Stephen first calls his mom, because it becomes too much even for Mark to deal with. And this is presumably when Stephen first took over again their lives. Basically, calling in and saying, hey mom, yeah, no, I got lost. And it's weird because you can see, and this is actually something, as I've said in other things, you can see this with people who have auditory hallucinations, where in our modern era, they will sometimes take out a cell phone to have that conversation with their auditory hallucination, because first off, it makes sense. It makes logical sense to them. Oh yeah, that's where the voice is coming from. It's coming from my phone. And so I can talk to the person on the phone. And it also makes people not think anything's weird about it, because now we know who you're talking to. Oh, you're just talking to someone on the phone. It's also interesting that they don't use an earbud. Although I don't see a lot of people talking on earbuds anymore. But just that idea of having that physical focus.
I saw an interesting thing where someone used a phone for a similar purpose. People who were schizophrenic or would see things or see people. One way they used to distinguish them from reality was to pull out their phone, and if they didn't see the person on the camera, then they would know, oh, that's just a hallucination.
Oh, that's interesting.
Fascinating thing, right? But then there must be some people, or the human brain evolutionarily, like collectively, will eventually evolve to go, oh, it should display there also. Fix the code. It should display there. Eventually.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure it's into each person, and I'm sure it has to do with what's your level of lucidity. And that, of course, goes to that interesting question about ego syntonic and ego dystonic.
What is
because
that?
One of the ideas within this is that Steve and Mark are very ego dystonic right now.
What are those?
Basically, they see themselves as separate, and they don't really like each other or the other person. They see the other person in a negative way towards themselves, and Stephen abhors Mark's violence, and even Mark abhors Stephen's
nerdiness,
blocking him, blocking him and holding him from his life. So in this sense, they're very ego dystonic. And what happens as they go through this journey is they become syntonic. They start to feel each other and understand each other in a way that they can accept each other, and they can actually sort of be with one another. And of course, then as they come through, they're on their boat and they start getting attacked by the sand monsters, as you do. And who doesn't? Yes.
I mean,
and they each get to fight the sand monster, and they each get to protect each other and fight for each other as a brother. And at the very end, after, in fact, really, I think this is like the scene that really links them is when, after Stephen saves Mark and he beats up the sand monster, he then just starts clubbing on the sand monster afterwards. Take that! That Stephen is letting go of his rage and letting him be the violent person now, so that they can both be a protector and a violent person.
Isn't then giving up the purpose that he exists for?
Well, and that is probably why he goes over the edge then. Because now his purpose in this is not real.
It's not needed.
It's not needed. And that's when the hearts balance. And that's when Mark passes on to the field of reeds. And we see poor old Stephen
does. Or does
no, Mark goes into the field of reeds. Stephen turns to sand.
Oh wow. I remember
because Stephen thought Mark was the altar. Stephen thought he was the real one, and
I know every altar thinks that, but Stephen was the one that was left purposeless by becoming violent or by becoming aware of these things. His whole purpose was to stay pure from that tainting substance, right? The idea that his mother was not as great as he thought she was. He was supposed to be, his purpose was to keep like a little lockbox where a piece of him could remain happy or would not have to deal with this. Now that's wide open. So his purpose doesn't exist anymore. So I thought Stephen would be the one to go. Like that would be his getting comfortable with, oh, I don't need to exist anymore. I have no purpose. I know these things. There's no reason for me the lock is broken. You throw out a broken lock, right? Or broken safe.
Yeah. But the thing is but that's the thing. Huh. If Stephen is the broken lock, that's why he falls over.
So if Mark is the broken lock, meaning that, oh, I can be violent on my own. I don't need you anymore, Mark.
No. But the point is that this is them sort of becoming one mind. They're still two personalities, but they're actually of one mind. They're actually able to work in unison. And they see each other as almost brothers. And that is where they get to this point. But then if everything that Stephen had is now encompassed in Mark, then Stephen as a persona is somewhat, Stephen can't exist. And that's why he goes over the edge, and that's why he turns to sand, and that's when the scales balance.
So again, who went over the edge?
Stephen went over the edge.
Right. Okay. Yes. That's
yeah.
Right. Okay. Right.
Because Mark is the primary. Mark is arguably the owner of the soul.
That's what okay.
And it was about Mark. So basically, as Steven learned who he was, it completed Mark's soul, as it were. And that's why they could be in balance. And that's why he passes through.
But if they balance, then that means there is no Jake, right?
No, there is. I mean, actually, I just realized we forgot something. Because that was the other thing that we had to deal with. That effectively the souls start coming in. That suddenly lots of people are dying while they're on this adventure. And they realize that, this is Amit's doing. She's killing many more people than should be coming in the Duat at any given moment. And they start seeing all of the stars falling.
So it's not that it's balanced. It's just, that action has been suspended momentarily until we can sort it out.
And I actually forgotten what we had to do, which was to, because they were thinking like, if you can get back to, because that was actually part of their thing is like the only way they can get back to their body was if they opened the doors of Osiris. That's the only way back to their bodies, but they would have to like get in balance first. And I'm sorry. I'm remembering now that there was some stuff I was forgetting in the plot line because I got very much caught up in what was happening emotionally to the characters.
Yeah.
Because emotionally to the characters, a lot is going on, but there actually is an action-adventure story going on too. So when they come to that moment, because it's also just this idea that they need to get Layla to free, because they say, if you go back and Khonshu's not there, you're not going to get, it's not going to help you. You're still going to be in a dead body. Like you're dead. You're totally dead. There's no.
Is that true? It seems like if Harrow still has the power of Amit, even though Amit is encapsulated in her statue, then he should have some of the powers of Khonshu.
Well, Amit has in his cane something that has the powers of Amit.
But you could make some sort of MacGuffin in his suit.
Well, if they had thought about it beforehand.
Fair enough.
So apparently, Amit was smart enough to stick a little crocodile tooth somewhere that someone else could use in the event of an emergency. Because you always got to plan ahead, as it were.
Yeah, and I don't think Khonshu's that smart.
No, clearly not. No. And that is, and that's Khonshu. That's why none of the other gods like Khonshu. That is where everything gets very interesting as it plays out. They have, pushed themselves to this end, and but also at the end of it, Mark does pass on because his scales are now in balance, so he gets to pass on, and that is, I believe, that's where we end it. Yeah. We know that there's still this problem, but we also know that we also know that Steven has been turned to sand, and this is your classic Empire Strikes Back ending, where that things aren't right, and that one of our heroes is down, and the next episode we got to figure out how we solve this problem.
I almost feel like our hero is now more complete than he was before, right? So our hero is collecting powers. Now he has use of both of his fists, the right and the left.
Yeah,
now he can fight. That's how
you can argue that. You can argue that. That's the real question: is how does he fight, and what does he? How do we build from this? And next episode it's gonna be a barn burner. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's exciting, and I won't spoil anything, but yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. I hope you'll enjoy it. It's got a little of everything that you want from a superhero ending. And it's pretty interesting in my mind, but that's it. Mozz, do you have any final thoughts on tonight's episode?
It all went so quickly.
I know it does, doesn't it?
Just getting started and we're at the end,
Yeah, well, I think we've covered a lot in it. I mean, that's the thing. There's been a lot of...
And they did change it from a series finale to a season finale, right?
Yeah, I believe
no longer called a series finale anymore. It's called a season finale. So
they're not. Yeah, they're going to bring back Moon Knight. Yeah,
yeah.
We got too many beloved characters to just let this end.
Yeah. I will say what I did like about this episode a lot was that Dr. Harrow, seems much more of a real person than Harrow. No, I buy like there seems to be more of a backstory to him. I understand his motivations a lot better. He seems like such a more well realized character than Harrow. Harrow seems like window dressing. Like he's just that's the villain. But this guy has some nuance to him. I liked Dr. Harrow a lot.
Oh no, I'm certain that is one of the main reasons Ethan Hawke took the role. Was for the Dr. Harrow. Although the Harrow character is fun too.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love to chew that scenery?
Yeah.
But here we've got him as this person. He's got his little Ned Flanders mustache.
Yeah.
And it's all these little things I just think really work well with him. And that is also a neat aspect of, because when you realize that well, it looks like Harrow, it actually isn't Harrow. That is actually also Mark as well. And it's just trying to it's his own befuddlement. It's his own attempt to try to rationalize his own mind. And maybe if I can just say I'm crazy, then that solves my problem.
Right.
If you think about it, being crazy is the easy answer.
Right. You don't have to fight anymore. Exactly.
Wouldn't that be nice? Just say, there was a great line by Fox Mulder in The X-Files once when he was talking about, Ahab and his white whale. And he says, but I've never understood that. Cause to me, if you had that problem, you wouldn't need a white whale. Cause it's every day that you went back up and captained the ship with your missing leg and drove your men on. Isn't that an amazing accomplishment after you got your leg bit off? That you don't just crawl into a hole and die. It's no, you keep on, and that should be accomplishment enough. You don't need a whale.
The point is, you can't do that unless you have a goal, unless you have an enemy, unless you have a place to point your energy.
Well, although arguably there's a whole scene in Moby Dick where there is another captain who lost his hand, who has adjusted to it. He says, actually, I kind of like having the hook. It's very useful, and I can do these things. And you can tell some of it. You can say, I don't know if it's that useful, but right. You do you, friend. You do you. If it's getting you through the day to say, I like my hook. I'm a proud captain. I do my job. Yeah. But that's not enough for Ahab. Ahab needs his revenge.
Right. It's some fighters are that way. They need to have a little bit of bad blood in order to fight at their best. The minute the guy turns around and starts acting friendly with them, it's not the same fight. Some fighters just can't operate in that mind state, and they need that, to take them to that edge.
That's a great way to get into your opponent's brain. Just say, man, no hard feelings, good fight.
Yeah. No. I mean, if somebody is friendly before the fight, all right, man, let's have a good fight. They just don't react well in that environment. But when there's some anger and there's some menace coming from the other side, then it's then you feel like you're on the edge. It's I have to fight for my life now. That's a different situation. And I think you find a different version of yourself there.
Yeah. And that is the thing here. Although, that is the conflict that Mark is working through is, do I just say I'm crazy and ignore it? Or do I fight on? Do I get that anger? Do I get that reason to fight?
Yeah.
And we're going to find out next week whether or not he finds something worth fighting for. All right. Mozz, well, actually, let me do this first. So, friends, this is on the Capes and Lunatics Network, as you know. If you liked what you heard, or even if you didn't like what you heard, write to us and tell us what sucks or what is great about us at CapesandLunatics@gmail.com. That's CapesandLunatics, all one word, at gmail.com. And quite frankly, if you don't like to write, if that's too much, you can actually call us and leave a voicemail. and tell us all of your wonderful thoughts about the show and what you found exciting about it at 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. So you can watch this show or any of our shows on a Wednesday. Call us and give us your review right then. We will play it on the air because we are cool like that. Likewise, if you really love the show, go to our Linktree website, which is linktr.ee/CapesandLunatics. That's Linktree/CapesandLunatics. There you will find all kinds of merch, t-shirts that fit even fat guys like me, real aluminum mugs that keep your drinks cold, and our Patreon account where you can get full video for as little as $5 a month, including our topless movie reviews and the worst superhero movie of all time brackets. If these sound like fun, I think you might enjoy becoming a Patreon and helping us out. All right, and Mozz, if people would like to reach out to you directly, how can they do so?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way the way our mothers and fathers once did it, superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And of course, follow me on the Twitter as I tweet things like Naomi, and other things when I start getting excited about things again. I gotta find something to get. Maybe I'm gonna start. No, I need to start live tweeting Svengoolie and Sventuni Saturday nights at 8 to 10:30. So that might be my new goal. At Charlie Esser, that's CharlieEsser. Look for the two E's in the middle
for quality. Bing.
Thank you, Mozz. All right, me hearties. You have sailed through the sand seas of the Duat. Come with us again as we return next week and sail full stream ahead. Arr.